The metallic lunchbox felt heavier than usual when my daughter-in-law, Sarah, handed it to me that Tuesday morning. "Could you drop this at David's office?" she asked, rushing out. At the hospital where I volunteer, Dr. Margaret Chen from oncology grabbed my wrist when she saw it. "Get your son tested immediately," she whispered, her face draining of color. "This lunchbox. I've seen this pattern before. If I'm right, he has maybe weeks." My hands trembled as I opened the latch. I never imagined that at 65 years old, my perfectly ordered life would shatter into pieces, like a mirror dropped from a great height. My name is Kristine, and for 4 decades I taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary. Now retired, I filled my days with what I thought were the simple joys of being a grandmother. Every morning at 6:30 sharp, I'd pull into the driveway of my son David's colonial house on Maple Street, ready to help with my 2 grandchildren before starting my volunteer shift at St. Mary's Hospital. That particular Tuesday started like any other. The October air carried the scent of falling leaves and chimney smoke as I walked up the familiar stone path. Through the kitchen window, I could see Sarah moving frantically, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun. Baby Jack balanced on one hip while she stirred something on the stove with her free hand. "Morning, sweetheart," I called out, letting myself in with the key they'd given me. The house smelled of coffee and toast mixed with the faint aroma of Jack's baby powder. 8-year-old Emma sat at the breakfast table, still in her pajamas, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate. "My tummy hurts again, Grandma Chris," she said, her small face scrunched up in discomfort. Sarah barely glanced over, adjusting Jack as he fussed. "She's fine, just trying to get out of her spelling test. Emma, finish your breakfast. We leave in 20 minutes. I studied my granddaughter's pale complexion, noting the dark circles under her bright blue eyes. "How long has your stomach been bothering you, sweet pea?" "Since last week," Emma mumbled, but Sarah cut her off. "Kids get stomach aches. She's been eating too much candy at her friend Madison's house." Sarah's voice had an edge I'd rarely heard before. She set Jack in his high chair with more force than necessary, making him whimper. David rushed into the kitchen, adjusting his tie. My son had inherited his father's tall frame and my dark eyes, though lately those eyes seemed dulled with exhaustion. "Morning, Mom. Thanks for coming early. I've got that big presentation for the Morrison account today." "You look tired, honey." I observed, watching him pour coffee into his travel mug. His hands shook slightly and he'd lost weight. His usually well-fitted suit hung loose on his shoulders. "Just work stress. The financial sector's been brutal this quarter." He grabbed his laptop bag, kissing Emma's head and ruffling Jack's wisps of hair. "Sarah, where's my lunch?" "Counter, next to your briefcase." Sarah was frantically wiping Jack's face, her movements sharp and agitated. Her phone buzzed on the counter and she glanced at it, her face flushing. I noticed the distinctive lunchbox immediately. Sleek black metal with intricate silver geometric patterns etched across its surface. It looked more like an art piece than a lunch carrier. "That's unusual," I commented. "Where did you find such a unique design?" Sarah's hand froze for a moment before she continued cleaning Jack. "Oh, just online. David needed a new one and I thought this looked professional." David grabbed it without really looking, already checking emails on his phone. "Thanks, honey. Mom, could you make sure Emma actually eats something? I'll be home late, probably after 8. The Morrison presentation could run long." "Daddy always comes home late," Emma said quietly, and something in her voice made my chest tighten. After David left, the morning routine continued its chaotic dance. Sarah seemed more frazzled than I'd ever seen her, dropping Jack's bottle twice and snapping at Emma to hurry up. When she finally loaded both children into her SUV, she realized she'd grabbed the wrong lunchbox. "Oh, for heaven's sake." She thrust the black metallic box at me through the car window. "This is David's. I grabbed Emma's pink one by mistake. Could you drop it at his office after your hospital shift? He'll need it by noon." "Of course, dear. Drive safely." I watched her speed off, tires squealing slightly as she turned the corner. Something felt off about the morning, like a picture hanging crooked on a wall. At St. Mary's Hospital, I settled into my volunteer routine delivering magazines and books to patients in the cancer ward. I'd been volunteering there for 3 years since Harold's passing, finding comfort in bringing small moments of joy to people facing their darkest hours. The geometric lunchbox sat on the volunteer desk, its patterns seeming to shift in the fluorescent light. I was arranging get-well cards in room 304 when Dr. Margaret Chen walked past, stopped and walked backward to stare at the desk. Margaret and I had known each other for years. She'd been Harold's oncologist during his final months, and we'd developed a friendship born from shared grief and mutual respect. Kristine, her voice came out strained. "Where did you get that lunchbox?" "It's my son's. I'm dropping it at his office later. Why?" Her face had gone ashen, the color draining away like water down a drain. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength, pulling me into the supply closet. Under the harsh light, I could see genuine fear in her eyes. "Listen to me very carefully," she whispered, though we were alone. "I've seen this exact lunchbox before. Not a similar one, this exact pattern down to the smallest detail." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos rapidly. "Here, look at this." The image showed a lunchbox identical to David's, sitting on what appeared to be an evidence table. This belonged to Nathan Garrett. 38 years old, came in presenting symptoms of aggressive cancer. Dead within 3 months. She swiped to another photo. This one belonged to Paul Morrison, 42. Same symptoms, dead in 4 months. Another swipe. Robert Chen, no relation to me, 39 years old. Dead in 2 months. My legs felt weak. "What are you saying?" All 3 men were poisoned, Kristine. Slowly, deliberately poisoned with a rare plant extract that mimics cancer symptoms. By the time they got to me, their bodies were too damaged. The only reason we discovered the truth was that Robert's sister, a botanist, recognized the symptoms and demanded specialized testing. "That's impossible. Sarah would never. She loves David." Margaret gripped my shoulders. All 3 wives were devastated, playing the perfect grieving widow. All 3 collected substantial life insurance policies, and all 3 had this exact lunchbox made by a specific craftsman who's part of an underground network that helps spouses eliminate their partners while making it look like natural illness. The room spun. I gripped the shelving unit to stay upright. "You're wrong. You have to be wrong." "I hope I am, but we need to test what's in that lunchbox. Now." She was already pulling on gloves, leading me to her office. "Has David been feeling unwell? Tired, losing weight?" Each question hit like a physical blow. "Yes, but he's been working long hours. The stress." "When did it start?" I thought back. 3 months ago, maybe 4, right after he got that promotion and increased his life insurance. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Margaret carefully opened the lunchbox with gloved hands. Inside was David's typical lunch turkey sandwich on whole wheat, an apple, a protein bar, and a green smoothie in a sealed container. She pulled out a testing kit from her desk drawer. "I kept these after the Chen case. They detect specific alkaloids found in the poison." She placed a drop of the smoothie on a test strip. We watched as it slowly changed color, shifting from white to deep purple. "Oh, God." My knees buckled and Margaret caught me, guiding me to a chair. "Kristine, we need to act fast but carefully. If Sarah is part of this network, she's dangerous. These people don't work alone and they're extremely sophisticated." She was already reaching for her phone. "I'm calling Detective Patricia Bowman. She's been investigating these cases, but first we need to get David to a hospital without alerting Sarah." How could I not see this? Tears burned my eyes. She seemed perfect. She was so good with the children, so supportive when Harold died. That's how they work. They choose their victims, carefully integrate into their lives, build trust. The geometric pattern on the lunchbox. It's a code. Each pattern is unique to the victim, like a 6 signature. As Margaret made her calls, I stared at the innocent-looking smoothie that was slowly killing my son. The woman I'd welcomed into our family, who I'd trusted with my grandchildren, was a monster wearing the mask of a loving wife. And somewhere in that revelation, my tears dried up. A cold, determined rage took their place. Sarah had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated a mother's love. Detective Patricia Bowman arrived at the hospital within 20 minutes, a woman in her 50s with sharp gray eyes and an air of quiet authority. She listened to Margaret's explanation without interrupting, taking photos of the lunchbox and the test results. Mrs. Henderson. She addressed me formally, though her voice held compassion. I know this is overwhelming, but we need to move quickly. Can you tell me about your daughter-in-law? How did she meet David? I forced myself to think clearly through the fog of shock. They met at a charity fundraiser 4 years ago. Sarah was volunteering for the Cancer Society. She'd mentioned her father died of cancer when she was young. David was there representing his firm. They hit it off immediately. Patricia and Margaret exchanged glances. Classic approach, the detective muttered, making notes. They often use charity events to identify targets. Did she have references, previous relationships? She said she'd been focused on caring for her sick mother, Ruth, her mother. Ruth is still alive, actually. She visits, often helps with the children. Ruth. Patricia wrote the name carefully. Tell me about David's health decline. I detailed the timeline. The initial fatigue David attributed to work stress. The weight loss he claimed was from skipping meals. The occasional confusion he laughed off. Sarah had been so concerned, making him special smoothies, packed with vitamins and supplements, insisting he drink them every morning for his health. She was always the one to bring up his health, I realized aloud. At family dinners, she'd mention how worried she was how David needed to see a doctor. But when he tried to schedule appointments, she'd find reasons to delay. Too busy with work, the kids had activities, they were planning their vacation. Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression darkening. The lab put a rush on the smoothie sample. It contains concentrated extracts from 3 different poisonous plants, carefully balanced to create symptoms that mirror an aggressive cancer. The mixture is sophisticated, designed to be undetectable in standard blood tests. Margaret leaned forward. Based on the concentration in David's symptoms, I'd estimate he's been receiving daily doses for at least 3 months. The damage to his organs is likely significant, but potentially reversible if we act now. We need to get him to the hospital without raising Sarah's suspicions, Patricia said. If she realizes we're on to her, she might accelerate the timeline or disappear. These networks have resources and escape plans. I pulled out my phone. I'll call David, tell him I fell at the hospital and need him to drive me home. He'll come immediately. The call was one of the hardest I'd ever made, lying to my son, while knowing someone he loved was slowly murdering him. But David responded exactly as I knew he would, promising to leave the office right away. While we waited, Patricia revealed more about the network they'd been tracking. We've identified at least 15 suspicious deaths across 6 states over the past 5 years. All men between 35 and 50, all successful, all with substantial life insurance policies that were recently increased. The wives all had similar profiles: charity work, sick, or deceased parents, no strong family connections of their own. Sarah has a brother in Seattle, I offered. But they're estranged. She said he had substance abuse issues. Probably doesn't exist, Patricia said bluntly. These women create elaborate backstories, but most of it is fabrication. We'll run a full background check. David arrived at the hospital looking haggard, his concern for me evident despite his own obvious exhaustion. Mom, what happened? Where does it hurt? Margaret stepped in smoothly. Mr. Henderson, your mother is fine, but we need to talk to you urgently about your health. Please come to my office. The next hour was brutal. Watching my son's face cycle through disbelief, anger, and devastation as we explained the situation tore at my heart. He kept shaking his head, insisting we were wrong, that Sarah loved him. The test results on his blood showing the presence of the plant toxins finally broke through his denial. The smoothies, he whispered, his face gray. She made them special for me. Said they were full of superfoods. I drank one every morning. Sometimes she'd bring me an extra one at the office if I was working late. Margaret immediately started him on a treatment protocol to counteract the poisoning. IVs, medications, careful monitoring. As nurses bustled around him, David grabbed my hand. "Emma," he said urgently. "Her stomach aches. What if—" Patricia was already on it. "We'll test her too. From what we've seen, they usually don't harm children directly, but mild sedatives aren't uncommon to keep them manageable." I thought of my granddaughter's pale face that morning, her complaints dismissed so quickly by Sarah. "I'll bring Emma in. I'll tell Sarah I'm taking her for ice cream after school." "Mrs. Henderson." Patricia cautioned, "You'll need to be extremely careful. Act normally. These women are expert manipulators and highly observant. Any change in your behavior could tip her off." "What about Jack?" David asked weakly from the hospital bed. "He's just a baby." Patricia hesitated. "We'll test him too. But Mr. Henderson, there's something else you need to prepare yourself for. In several cases, we've investigated the children weren't biologically the husbands." David closed his eyes, the final blow landing. "She was so insistent about having another baby, said Emma needed a sibling. We tried for months before she got pregnant. I left the hospital with a wire hidden under my sweater and Patricia's cell number programmed into my phone. The drive to Emma's school felt surreal, like moving through a nightmare. How many times had I driven this route thinking I was picking up my granddaughter for a fun afternoon, never knowing the danger she was in? Emma came running out when she saw my car, her backpack bouncing. "Grandma, Chris' mom said you were at the hospital." "Just visiting patient Sweet Pea. How about some ice cream?" Her face lit up, then fell. "Mom says ice cream makes my tummy worse." "Well, maybe we should have a doctor check your tummy first, then decide about ice cream." At the pediatric clinic, I explained to Dr. James Morrison, an old family friend, that Emma had been having recurring stomach issues. He examined her gently running tests while distracting her with stories about his new puppy. An hour later, he pulled me aside, his expression grim. "Kristine, there are traces of diphenhydramine in her system. It's an antihistamine commonly used in sleep aids. Not enough to cause serious harm, but consistent with daily low doses. It would cause drowsiness, stomach discomfort, and general malaise." "She's been drugging my granddaughter." The words came out flat, emotionless. I'd moved past shock into a cold fury. "I'm required to report this to Child Protective Services," James said quietly. "But given what you've told me about the ongoing investigation, I'll coordinate with Detective Bowman first." Emma and I stopped for ice cream anyway. She deserved that much normalcy before her world imploded. As she chatted about school and her best friend Lily, I memorized every detail of her innocent face, storing up these moments before everything changed. When we arrived at David's house, Sarah's car was in the driveway. I helped Emma with her backpack, keeping my expression neutral. Inside, Sarah was in the kitchen, Jack and his bouncer preparing what looked like another smoothie. "How was the hospital?" she asked without turning around. "David texted that he had to leave work. Some emergency—" "Oh, I just felt a bit dizzy. Low blood sugar. David overreacted, you know how he is." I busied myself hanging up Emma's backpack, watching Sarah's reflection in the microwave door. She was adding something to the smoothie from a small amber bottle, her movements practiced and confident. "He works too hard. I keep telling him to slow down, but you know David. Always pushing himself. The smoothie for him? Yes, I thought I'd run it by his office. He didn't take his lunch, and he needs his nutrients." She sealed the container, that familiar, concerned wife smile on her face. "Actually, would you mind watching Jack for an hour? I want to make sure David's okay." "He's probably in a meeting. Why don't you call first?" Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. I did. He's not answering. She moved closer, and I smelled her perfume, the same vanilla scent I'd once found comforting. "Kristine, is everything all right? You seem different today." This was it. The moment where everything depended on my ability to lie to someone who specialized in deception. I thought of David in that hospital bed, of Emma's drugged lethargy, of all the wives who'd watched their husbands die slowly while playing nursemaid. I smiled the same grandmother smile I'd given her 1,000 times. Just tired, dear. Of course I'll watch Jack. Take your time. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Every instinct screamed at me to grab my grandchildren and run to confront Sarah and scream the truth in her face. Instead, I became someone I didn't recognize, a spy in my own family's life, gathering evidence while pretending everything was normal. David remained hospitalized for intensive testing, as far as Sarah knew. Patricia had arranged for the hospital to tell Sarah he'd collapsed at work from exhaustion and dehydration, requiring observation. Sarah played the worried wife, perfectly bringing flowers and sitting by his bedside, all while sneaking those poison smoothies into the room. I made your special blend, she'd coo-ee, trying to help him drink. All your favorites. The doctors say nutrition is crucial for recovery. David, coached by Patricia and fighting every instinct, would take small sips and then accidentally spill the rest when Sarah stepped out. The medical team made sure to dispose of every drop, carefully documenting each attempted poisoning. I maintained my routine, arriving each morning to help with the children. But now I noticed things I'd been blind to before. Sarah's phone was never out of her sight. She had a locked drawer in the bedroom she claimed held important documents. She made unexplained trips during Jack's nap time, always returning within exactly 1 hour. The hidden camera Patricia had given me was no bigger than a button. I attached it to a decorative plant in the kitchen, angled to capture the counter where Sarah prepared David's meals. What it recorded over those 2 weeks would have been unbelievable if I hadn't watched it with my own eyes. Sarah had a routine. Every morning at 6, before anyone else woke, she'd retrieve 3 small vials from inside a box of organic tea in the pantry. The first clear liquid went into David's smoothie. The second, a blue-tinted substance she'd carefully measure into Emma's orange juice. The third vial she'd return, unused. On the 4th day of surveillance, I discovered what the third vial was for. Sarah's mother, Ruth, came for her weekly visit. Ruth was a well-preserved woman in her early 60s with the same calculating eyes as her daughter. I'd always found her slightly cold but had attributed it to personality differences. "How's our patient?" Ruth asked, setting her purse on the counter with practiced casualness. "Stubborn," Sarah replied, glancing at me as I played with Jack in the living room. They thought I couldn't hear them, but I'd learned to position myself where conversations carried. "He keeps refusing the smoothies, says the hospital food is making him nauseous." "Patience, darling. These things take time. Your father took 4 months, remember?" My blood chilled. Sarah's father had supposedly died of cancer 15 years ago. I forced myself to continue stacking blocks with Jack, even as my hands trembled. "The timeline is tighter here," Sarah continued. "The insurance contestability period is over, but I don't want to raise suspicions. Natural progression is key." "What about the mother?" Ruth's voice dropped and I had to strain to hear. "She suspects nothing, still playing devoted grandma. Though," Sarah paused, "she's been asking more questions lately, about David's symptoms, about Emma's stomach. Perhaps it's time to adjust her tea." That's when I understood the third vial's purpose. It was meant for me eventually. Once David was gone, the grieving mother-in-law might need to follow, especially if she became inconvenient. I started being very careful about what I ate or drank in that house. The evidence mounted daily. Through the camera, we captured Sarah on phone calls with someone named Marcus. The conversations were intimate, full of promises about their future together. "When this is over." She mentioned money transfers, properties in Costa Rica, and the others in the network. Patricia's team traced the calls to a burner phone, but the investigation revealed Marcus's identity through old-fashioned detective work. He was a personal trainer at an upscale gym, 15 years younger than Sarah, with expensive tastes and a gambling problem. Bank records showed Sarah had been transferring money to him for 2 years long before David's illness began. But the most damning discovery came from following Sarah during those mysterious hour-long trips. She drove to a nondescript office building downtown, taking the elevator to the 4th floor. The directory listed it as Healing Hearts Counseling, but Patricia discovered it was actually a front. I volunteered to follow Sarah one Thursday, my heart pounding, as I watched her enter the building. Patricia had given me a small camera disguised as a brooch. Just walk past the door, she'd instructed. Don't try to enter. We need to know what we're dealing with first. The fourth-floor hallway was elegant with soft lighting and expensive carpet. A small placard beside Suite 412 read, "Healing Heart Support for Life Transitions." Through the door's glass panel, I glimpsed a reception area where several women sat reading magazines. They all looked normal, respectable, the kind of women you'd see at PTA meetings or church functions. Sarah emerged after exactly 55 minutes checking her phone as she walked past me without a glance. That evening, Patricia called with the results of her investigation. Healing Hearts is registered to a Dr. Linda Hartwell, a licensed therapist who specializes in grief counseling. But here's the interesting part. Every woman we've identified in the poisoning network has been her patient. She's recruiting them, I breathed. More than that, we think she's the mastermind. She identifies vulnerable women in troubled marriages, grooms them, and provides the infrastructure for the murders. The lunchboxes, the poison suppliers, the offshore accounts, even the alibis. The scope of it staggered me. How many? We've confirmed 18 deaths across 7 years. There could be more. Patricia's voice was grim. Kristine, we need Sarah to make one more attempt on David's life. One where we catch her in the act with witnesses. Can you help arrange a family gathering? Emma's birthday is next week, I said slowly. Sarah's been planning a small party. Family only she said. She wanted to keep it intimate since David's been sick. Perfect. We'll have agents in position. The house will be fully wired. All David has to do is play sick one more time. The thought of using my granddaughter's birthday as a trap sickened me. But what choice did we have? Sarah had already stolen Emma's innocence, drugging her own daughter for convenience. At least this way it would end. The days leading to the party tested every ounce of my self-control. Sarah seemed on edge, snapping at Emma more frequently, checking her phone obsessively. She'd tried twice more to bring David smoothies at the hospital, only to be turned away by nurses citing doctors' orders for a restricted diet. It's like they don't want him to get better, she complained to Ruth during another visit. These doctors and their protocols. Natural healing is what he needs. Ruth patted her daughter's hand. Patience. The birthday party will be perfect. A family gathering everyone together. David won't be able to refuse Emma's request to come home for her special day. I was folding laundry in the next room, every word crystal clear. They were planning something for the party. Something final. 2 days before Emma's birthday, I found Sarah in her bedroom, the locked drawer open as she counted small glass vials. She didn't hear me approach, too focused on her inventory. Sarah Emma's asking about her princess cake. She slammed the drawer shut, spinning around with wide eyes. Kristine, I didn't hear you come up. Sorry, dear. I didn't mean to startle you. I kept my voice light, grandmother worried. Is everything all right? You seem stressed. Just supplements, she said quickly, locking the drawer and pocketing the key. For David. The doctor said, they said his vitamin levels are dangerously low. I want to have everything ready when he comes home. How thoughtful of you. He's lucky to have such a caring wife. Sarah's smile was perfect, practiced. We do what we must for the people we love. That night, I called Patricia. She's planning something big for the party. I saw at least a dozen vials in that drawer. We'll be ready. Kristine, you've done amazingly well. Just a few more days. But those few days felt like walking through a minefield. Every meal Sarah prepared, every drink she offered, every kind gesture could be deadly. I watched her with Emma, seeing the calculated coldness behind the maternal facade, how she timed Emma's medicine to keep her quiet during crucial phone calls, how she held Jack but never truly looked at him with love, just possession. One afternoon while Sarah was at her counseling session, I searched her car under the pretense of looking for Emma's missing library book. Hidden beneath the spare tire was an emergency kit, cash in multiple currencies, 3 passports with Sarah's photo, but different names, and a burner phone with one number saved M. Marcus. Her escape plan was ready. I photographed everything and replaced it exactly as I'd found it. That evening, Sarah mentioned casually that she was thinking of taking the kids to visit her fictional brother in Seattle after Emma's birthday. "Just for a week or two," she said. "Give David time to fully recover in peace." The pieces were falling into place. Drug David heavily at the party may be enough to cause a fatal relapse, then disappear with the children before the autopsy could reveal the truth. By the time anyone suspected murder, she'd be in another country with a new identity. But Sarah had underestimated us all. David's strength, my determination, and most importantly, the dedication of Detective Patricia Bowman, who'd spent 3 years hunting the network that had killed her own brother-in-law. Emma's 9th birthday dawned bright and clear. I arrived early to help decorate my hands steady despite the knowledge of what was coming. Sarah bustled around the perfect hostess, her smile never wavering. "David's being discharged this morning," she announced. "He insisted on being here for Emma. Isn't that wonderful?" Wonderful. I agreed, hanging streamers while federal agents positioned themselves around the neighborhood. The trap was set. Now we just had to survive the spring. The morning of Emma's birthday party, I stood in my kitchen at 5 a.m., hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I couldn't drink. In 4 hours, my son would walk back into a house where his wife planned to kill him. The FBI tactical team was already in position, agents in the neighbor's garage in a van down the street, and Detective Patricia Bowman herself in my car ready to move at her signal. Patricia's voice crackled through the tiny earpiece they'd given me. "Kristine, David's en route. He knows what to do. Just keep Sarah focused on the party preparations." David's part was crucial but dangerous. He needed to appear weak enough that Sarah would seize the opportunity, but not so ill that she'd suspect he was acting. For the past week, the hospital had been secretly treating him with aggressive chelation therapy and supplements to counteract the poisoning. He was actually stronger than he'd been in months, but Sarah couldn't know that. I arrived at their house at 7:30, finding Sarah already in full preparation mode. She'd been up since dawn baking Emma's requested princess cake from scratch. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and deception. "Morning, dear," I called out, noticing she'd already set out David's favorite mug beside the blender. "Big day today." "The biggest," Sarah replied, her smile bright. "Emma's so excited David's coming home. I just hope he's feeling up to it." She moved to the refrigerator, pulling out ingredients for what I now knew was David's death sentence. Spinach berries, protein powder, and from the locked cabinet, she thought I didn't know about 3 vials of clear liquid. "Let me help," I offered, moving closer. "No need. This is David's special blend. I know exactly how he likes it." Her hands moved with practiced precision, adding each poison with the care of a master chef seasoning a signature dish. "Besides, you should check on Emma. She was asking about her special birthday dress." Dismissed. I climbed the stairs, pausing halfway to watch Sarah through the mirror's reflection. She held the smoothie up to the light, swirled it, then added another full vial. Whatever she'd been giving David in daily doses, today's amount would be lethal. Emma was sitting on her bed, still in pajamas, looking far too serious for a birthday girl. "Grandma Chris, is Daddy really coming home?" "He is sweet pea. He wouldn't miss your birthday for anything." "Mommy said he's been very sick. She cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. "But sometimes she's on the phone laughing with someone. Is that weird?" From the mouths of babes. "Sometimes adults are complicated, honey, but today is about you. Let's get you dressed." As I helped Emma into her purple princess dress, I heard David's car in the driveway. My heart rate spiked, but I forced myself to remain calm. This was it. Daddy Emma flew down the stairs, and I followed to find David in the doorway playing his part perfectly. He looked haggard, one hand braced against the doorframe, but his eyes were alert. "There's my birthday princess," he said, catching Emma as she hugged him carefully. Sarah appeared, the smoothie glass in hand, her expression a masterpiece of wifely concern. "Darling, you look exhausted. Here I made your protein shake. Extra vitamins, just like the doctor ordered." "In a minute," David said, settling heavily on the couch. "Let me catch my breath." I watched Sarah's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. "You really should drink it while it's fresh. The nutrients break down quickly." Sarah's right. I chimed in, earning a sharp look from my son. But maybe after he rests a moment. Emma, why don't you show Daddy your birthday wish list? For the next hour, Sarah tried repeatedly to get David to drink the smoothie. She brought it to him on the couch, set it beside his chair at the kitchen table, even tried to hand it to him while he was helping Emma with her birthday crown. Each time something interrupted, Emma needed something. Jack started crying. The doorbell rang with an early guest. Ruth arrived at 11 carrying a gift bag and wearing a satisfied smile. "How's our patient?" she asked Sarah quietly as they embraced. "Stubborn," Sarah hissed back. "The smoothie's been sitting there for 2 hours." "Patience." Ruth counseled, then louder. "David, so good to see you home. You look—" She paused, taking in his appearance. "Like you need some nourishment." The party guests began arriving, my sister Janet and her husband Bill, David's cousin Michael and his family, a few of Emma's school friends with their parents. Normal people living normal lives with no idea they were extras in a murder plot. Sarah grew increasingly agitated as the party progressed. The smoothie glass had been moved to the kitchen counter, condensation beading on its surface. She kept glancing at it then at David, who was managing to appear weaker as the party went on. "Cake time," Emma announced, and everyone gathered around the dining room table. Sarah lit the 9 candles on the elaborate princess cake, her smile fixed and bright. "Make a wish, sweetheart," David set his arm around Emma. As Emma closed her eyes, Sarah moved. She grabbed the smoothie glass and pressed it into David's other hand. "Here, honey, you need your strength for the cake cutting." This was the moment. Patricia's voice in my earpiece. "All units stand by." David looked at the glass, then at his wife. "You're right. I should drink this." Sarah's eyes lit up with triumph. "Every drop for your health." David raised the glass to his lips. Around the table, everyone was focused on Emma as she took a deep breath for her candles. But I watched Sarah saw the anticipation in her face, the barely concealed excitement. "Actually," David said, suddenly lowering the glass, "I just remembered. The doctor said no smoothies today. Something about the medication interacting with certain proteins." Sarah's mask slipped for just a second, revealing fury beneath. "That's ridiculous. I've been giving you these smoothies for months." "Exactly," David said quietly, "for months." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah went very still. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice deadly calm. "I'm saying—" David stood suddenly, not looking weak at all. "That I know exactly what you've been giving me, Sarah. Every poison drop." Emma blew out her candles as FBI agents burst through the front door. The next moments were chaos. Sarah lunged for the knife they'd been using to cut fruit, but Patricia was faster, tackling her to the ground. Ruth tried to run but found agents blocking every exit. Parents grabbed their children, shielding them from the scene as Sarah screamed obscenities, her perfect mask finally shattered completely. "You don't understand," Sarah shrieked as they handcuffed her. "He was supposed to die. It was all planned. $3 million, Marcus and I were going to be free." "Sarah Mitchell, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and child endangerment." Patricia recited, her voice steady despite the mayhem. Ruth was cursing her daughter's stupidity as agents led her away. "I told you to be patient. 40 years I've been doing this, and you ruined everything." Emma stood, frozen tears streaming down her face as she watched her mother being arrested at her birthday party. I scooped her up, carrying her to her room while David dealt with the agents and the shocked guests. "Grandma, why did they take Mommy?" Emma sobbed into my shoulder. "How do you explain such evil to a 9-year-old? Sometimes people we love do very bad things, sweetheart. Your mommy was making Daddy sick, and that's not okay." "Is that why my tummy hurt? Was Mommy making me sick too?" "Yes, baby, but it's over now. You're safe." We sat on her bed, the sounds of the investigation continuing downstairs. Through the window, I watched Sarah being placed in a police car, her face contorted with rage. She looked up at Emma's window and smiled, a cold, terrifying expression that made me pull the curtains closed. Later, after the guests had been interviewed and released, after the evidence team had cataloged the poisons and the doctored foods, After Jack had been taken for testing at the hospital, Patricia sat with David and me in the living room. "Sarah's already talking," she said. "Trying to make a deal. She's given us names, locations, the whole network. Dr. Linda Hartwell was arrested an hour ago at her home trying to destroy files." "How many?" David asked, his voice hollow. "So far, we've identified 47 suspicious deaths across 8 states over the past decade. Sarah was relatively new to the network. This was only her second project." "Second?" I gasped. Patricia nodded grimly. "She was married before briefly in California. Thomas Morrison, a tech entrepreneur, died of aggressive stomach cancer 3 years ago. Life insurance payout of $1.5 million. David buried his face in his hands. "How did I not see it?" "They're experts at manipulation," Patricia said gently. "They choose their victims, carefully create elaborate personas, and by the time you might suspect something, you're too sick to think clearly." "What about Marcus?" I asked. "Arrested trying to board a flight to Costa Rica. He's claiming he knew nothing about the murders, that Sarah told him she was leaving an abusive marriage." Patricia's smile was sharp. The recorded conversations suggest otherwise. As she prepared to leave, Patricia pulled me aside. "You saved your son's life, Kristine. Your instincts, your courage to act on them. Not everyone would have been strong enough to do what you did." But I didn't feel strong. I felt old and tired and heartbroken for my grandchildren who would grow up knowing their mother tried to murder their father for money. That night, I stayed at David's house. Emma had nightmares calling out for a mother who would never comfort her again. Jack thankfully was too young to understand, though the tests revealed he'd been receiving small doses of a mild sedative, probably to keep him quiet during Sarah's phone calls with Marcus. David sat at the kitchen table staring at the spot where the poisoned smoothie had been. "She made them with such care," he said. "Every morning she'd measure everything precisely, blend it perfectly. I thought it was love." "It was precision," I corrected, "but never love. Someone who loves you doesn't slowly steal your life away." "What am I going to tell them when they're older, that their mother is a monster?" "You'll tell them the truth when they're ready, that sometimes people lose their way, choose greed over love, lies over truth. But you'll also tell them that they are surrounded by people who truly love them, who would never hurt them." The investigation would continue for months. Sarah's arrest would lead to dozens more across the country as the network crumbled. But that night, we just held each other and tried to make sense of a world where birthday parties could be crime scenes and smoothies could be weapons. The geometric lunchbox sat in evidence lockup, its elegant patterns, now sinister in their meaning. Somewhere, a craftsman who specialized in murder was being questioned. Dr. Linda Hartwell was being processed, her therapy notes revealing years of grooming vulnerable women into killers. But in Emma's room, a birthday girl finally slept peacefully, no longer drugged by a mother who saw her as an inconvenience. And in the nursery, Jack breathed easily free from sedatives. It wasn't the birthday party any of us had planned, but it was the day the truth set us free, even as it shattered everything we thought we knew. The investigation exploded across state lines over the next 2 days. Patricia called me hourly with updates as the FBI raided homes offices and storage units connected to the poisoning network. Each arrest revealed new layers of horror. "Sarah's turning on everyone to save herself," Patricia informed me during one call. "She's provided us with the complete client list from Dr. Hartwell's files. 43 active cases, Kristine. 43 women in the process of killing their husbands." I was at David's house trying to maintain normalcy for the children while our world unraveled. "Active cases. You mean..." "Currently poisoning them, yes. We've got units deploying to warn the victims and arrest the perpetrators. It's the largest coordinated sting operation I've ever been part of." Emma was coloring at the kitchen table, but I could see her listening. Since her mother's arrest, she'd become hyper-vigilant, catching every adult conversation. I stepped onto the back porch for privacy. "What about the craftsman, the one who made the lunchboxes?" Gregory Morse, 64 years old master metalworker from Oregon. He's claiming artistic expression that he had no idea what the lunchboxes were used for. But we found his payment records. $50,000 per lunchbox, Kristine. You don't charge that for innocent food containers. Inside, David was on his laptop handling the legal aftermath. Freezing accounts, changing beneficiaries, filing for emergency custody. His color had improved dramatically once the poisoning stopped, though Dr. Chen warned it would take months to fully assess the damage to his organs. That afternoon, Patricia arrived with a federal prosecutor named James Wellington. They needed David's testimony, but first they had news. Sarah's agreed to a plea deal. Wellington announced, setting his briefcase on the dining room table. She'll testify against Dr. Hartwell and provide evidence about the entire network in exchange for a reduced sentence. Reduced? David's voice was ice. She tried to murder me. She drugged our daughter. Without her cooperation, we might only get a handful of convictions, Wellington explained. With it, we can dismantle the entire organization and save lives. She's looking at 25 to 30 years instead of life without parole. What about Ruth? I asked. Patricia smiled grimly. Ruth's not cooperating. She's maintained her innocence despite overwhelming evidence. Sarah threw her under the bus, completely providing recordings of their conversations, dates, even victims we didn't know about. Victims. David set down his coffee cup with shaking hands. Sarah's father wasn't Ruth's first husband, or her second. She's been marrying and murdering for profit since 1985. We've confirmed 7 husbands across 4 states, all dead from various illnesses, within 2 years of marriage. Ruth trained Sarah in the family business. The room fell silent except for the sound of Emma's crayons. She was drawing our family, I noticed. David herself, Jack and me. No Sarah. Wellington continued. We need to discuss the trial. Sarah's confession included details about your marriage that will become public. Things she observed documented used to plan the murder. Over the next 3 hours, they walked David through Sarah's statements. She'd kept journals documenting his routines, his health, his financial status. She'd recorded conversations where he discussed increasing his life insurance. She'd photographed his will, his investment accounts, even his medical records. She started planning before Jack was born, Patricia said gently. The pregnancy was part of it. She wanted to ensure her position as the grieving widow with young children would be beyond suspicion. Jack, David said suddenly. Sarah insisted we try for another baby, said Emma needed a sibling, but she was already… He couldn't finish. We've ordered DNA testing, Wellington said. Given the timeline and Sarah's relationship with Marcus, there's a possibility… He's my son, David interrupted firmly. Biology doesn't matter. He's my son. That evening, Ruth's lawyer contacted Patricia. Ruth wanted to make a deal, but only if she could speak to me first. The FBI agreed with conditions the meeting would be recorded in a secure location with agents present. I found myself in a gray interview room at the federal building, facing the woman who'd helped plot my son's murder. Ruth looked older without her careful makeup, her silver hair pulled back severely. Kristine. She began, then stopped seeming to search for words. I suppose you hate me. I pity you, I replied honestly. What turned you into this? When did money become worth more than human life? Ruth laughed a bitter sound. Easy to judge from your comfortable life. You had a husband who loved you, provided for you. My first husband beat me daily, put me in the hospital twice. The police did nothing, said it was a domestic matter. So you killed him. I survived him. He had a weak heart and a taste for salt. I just helped nature along. The insurance money was my freedom. She leaned forward. Then I met husband number 2, another charmer who turned cruel after the wedding. By then I'd learned that some problems have permanent solutions. And the others, were they all abusive? Ruth's expression hardened. Does it matter? They were means to an end. I gave them companionship for a time. They gave me security forever. It's a fair trade. You taught your daughter to murder. I taught her to be independent, to never rely on a man's goodness. Ruth studied me. You think you're so different, so moral, you killed Harold. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Harold died of a heart attack. After 40 years of your cooking, all that butter, salt, red meat, you knew his cholesterol was high, his family history, but you kept making his favorite foods, didn't you? Enabling his slow suicide because it made him happy. That's not the same, isn't it? Ruth smiled coldly. The only difference between us is intention. You killed with kindness. I killed with purpose. I stood to leave, but Ruth grabbed my wrist. Take care of Sarah's children, she said urgently. They're innocent in this. Don't let them grow up thinking they're poisoned by their bloodline. Unlike you, I said, pulling free. I know the difference between love and murder. The next weeks blurred together in a haze of legal proceedings, medical appointments, and therapy sessions. Emma started seeing a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. She drew picture after picture of her mother behind bars working through her confusion and fear. Jack's DNA results confirmed what David already knew in his heart. Marcus was the biological father. But David's name was on the birth certificate, and he filed for full paternal rights. Marcus, facing his own attempted murder charges, didn't contest it. The trial date was set for spring. In the meantime, the network continued to unravel. Dr. Linda Hartwell's patient files revealed a sophisticated operation spanning years. She'd identified vulnerable women in bad marriages, groomed them through months of therapy, then introduced them to the solution. The lunchbox craftsman Gregory Morse finally broke when confronted with evidence that he'd created identifying marks for each victim. He thought himself an artist creating beautiful instruments of death. His workshop contained detailed records, 47 lunchboxes over 6 years each, with unique patterns that served as a victim identifier for the network. Sarah's pre-trial hearings were a media circus. The press dubbed her the smoothie killer, focusing on the cold calculation of poisoning someone with health drinks. David refused all interview requests, focusing on rebuilding his life and protecting the children. One evening, as I was giving Jack his bottle, David asked me a question that had been haunting us both. Do you think she ever loved me, even at the beginning? I considered lying, offering comfort, but we'd had enough lies. I think she loved what you represented. Security status, a father for Emma. But love, real love. No honey. People capable of real love don't carry poison in their purse. David nodded, accepting the harsh truth. I loved her, or who I thought she was. That's what makes you different from her. Your love was real, even if hers wasn't. Emma appeared in the doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed unicorn. Grandma, Chris, will Mommy ever come back? David opened his arms and Emma climbed into his lap. No, sweetheart. Mommy did something very bad, and she has to stay away to keep us safe. Forever. For a very long time. Emma considered this. Good. I don't want any more tummy medicine. As winter approached, life found new rhythms. David hired a nanny carefully vetted by the FBI. I came by daily, but we were all learning to trust again. The geometric lunchbox had been replaced with a simple brown bag. David packed his own lunches, now simple sandwiches, and whole fruit. The trial loomed, but so did healing. Emma laughed more. Jack learned to crawl, then walk, reaching his milestones poison-free. David started running, channeling his anger into physical recovery. One day, Patricia called with final arrest numbers, 53 women across 9 states, 12 suppliers, 4 craftsmen, and 1 mastermind therapist. The network was dead, its poisonous web finally torn apart. All because I'd noticed a geometric pattern on a lunchbox, and a doctor had recognized death, disguised as lunch. The trial began on a cold March morning 6 months after Emma's birthday party had turned into a crime scene. I sat in the courtroom's front row, my hand clasped in David's, as Sarah was led in, wearing an orange jumpsuit. She'd lost weight, her hair now showing gray roots, but her eyes remained calculating as they swept the room. The prosecutor, James Wellington, laid out the case with devastating precision. Sarah's journals presented as evidence revealed a woman who'd viewed her marriage as a business transaction from day one. She'd written about David like he was a stock portfolio, initial investment projected returns, exit strategy. June 15th. Wellington read from one entry. David mentioned increasing life insurance to $3 million. Suggested waiting until after the baby. No. Strike while motivated. Claimed concern for family's future. He signed within a week. David flinched beside me. Emma was at school, thank God spared from hearing her mother's calculated plans for her father's death. But the media would ensure she'd know everything eventually. Sarah's defense attorney tried painting her as a victim of her mother's influence, a woman trapped in a generational cycle of violence. They brought in psychiatric experts who testified about trauma bonding and learned behaviors. Sarah herself took the stand, tears streaming as she described her childhood with Ruth. My mother taught me that men were dangerous. Sarah said, her voice breaking, that the only way to be safe was to strike first. I loved David, but I was terrified of being vulnerable. So terrified, Wellington countered in cross-examination, that you maintained a 3-year relationship with Marcus Chen while married. So terrified that you drugged your own daughter to keep her manageable while you planned murder. The tears dried up instantly, Sarah's mask slipping. You don't understand the pressure I was under. From whom your mother, who you visited weekly, Dr. Hartwell, who you paid thousands of dollars to join her network, or Marcus, who was waiting for you in Costa Rica with a new identity. Sarah's confession played for the jury was the nail in her coffin. Her voice, captured clearly by FBI recording equipment, detailed everything with chilling casualness. How she'd tested small doses on David, first monitoring his symptoms. How she'd researched which plants would mimic cancer. How she'd practiced her grieving widow performance in the mirror. Ruth's trial ran concurrently in another courtroom. Without Sarah's cooperation, she might have escaped justice. But her daughter had provided everything, recordings of their planning sessions, photos of Ruth's poison collection, even a ledger documenting victims dating back 40 years. The network trials dominated headlines for weeks. Dr. Linda Hartwell, the mastermind therapist, faced federal racketeering charges. Her defense that she was merely providing therapy to troubled women fell apart when prosecutors presented her detailed murder planning documents complete with poison schedules and alibi coaching. Throughout it all, David testified with quiet dignity. He described the gradual onset of symptoms, the trust he'd placed in his wife, the shock of discovery. When asked about Jack's paternity, he stated firmly, "He's my son in every way that matters." The verdicts came down like dominoes. Sarah guilty on all counts, sentenced to 30 years, with possibility of parole after 20. She'd screamed at the sentencing, claiming David had driven her to it, that the jury didn't understand true fear. But the judge remained unmoved. Ruth received life without parole, her 7 murdered husbands finally getting justice. She'd shown no remorse, maintaining that she'd simply been a survivor in a world that favored men. Dr. Hartwell got 40 years for running a criminal enterprise. 47 of her recruited killers received sentences ranging from 15 years to life, depending on whether they'd completed their murders or been caught in the planning stages. Gregory Morse, the lunchbox craftsman, got 12 years as an accomplice. His artistic pretensions crumbled when prosecutors showed he'd kept souvenirs, photos of each lunchbox paired with obituaries of the victims. Marcus Chen pleaded guilty to conspiracy charges and received 8 years. His dreams of a life in Costa Rica, funded by David's death, ended in a federal prison cell. The aftermath was harder than the trial. David threw himself into therapy, working through the trauma of discovering the person he'd loved most had been slowly killing him. He struggled with trust, questioning every relationship, every gesture of kindness. Emma's therapy was different, but equally crucial. Dr. Patricia Sawyer specialized in children with criminal parents, helping Emma understand that her mother's actions weren't her fault, that she wasn't destined to follow the same path. Some people make bad choices, Dr. Sawyer explained during one session I attended. Your mom made very bad choices, but you get to make your own choices, and you have people who love you and will help you make good ones." Emma nodded solemnly, then asked, "Did Mommy ever love me?" "In her own way, I think she did," Dr. Sawyer said carefully. "But sometimes people's love gets twisted by other things like greed or fear until it's not healthy anymore." Jack, now walking and babbling, remained blissfully unaware. We'd agreed to tell him the truth when he was older, but for now he was just a happy toddler who called David Dada and me Gamma. The financial aftermath took months to sort out. Sarah's assets were frozen, the life insurance policies voided due to attempted murder. The house held too many memories, so David sold it using the proceeds to buy a smaller place in a different school district. "Fresh start," he said. I helped them move, packing up a life that had been built on lies. In Sarah's closet, behind designer dresses bought with her first husband's insurance money, I found a box of photos. Sarah as a child with Ruth, both smiling at the camera, normal looking, even happy. When had it all gone wrong? David found me studying them. "Throw them away," he said flatly. "Emma might want them someday, to understand." "Then keep them, but not in my house." He softened. "I know you're trying to find humanity in her mom, but sometimes people are just evil." 6 months after the verdict's unexpected hope arrived, David met Amanda at, of all places, a grief support group for crime victims. She was a widow whose husband, a Marine, had been killed by friendly fire in Afghanistan, the truth covered up for years by the military. "She understands betrayal," David told me after their third coffee date. "She knows what it's like to have your reality shattered by lies." Amanda was nothing like Sarah. Where Sarah had been polished and calculated, Amanda was genuine and straightforward. She worked as a pediatric nurse, had a 12-year-old son named Tyler, and possessed a laugh that filled rooms. Their relationship developed slowly, built on shared pain and cautious hope. Amanda was patient with David's trust issues, understanding when he needed to verify stories, or became anxious about unexplained absences. She never pushed, never demanded more than he could give. Emma warmed to Amanda gradually. Having been drugged by her mother, she was wary of new women in their lives. But Amanda won her over by simply being present, attending school plays, helping with homework, never trying to replace Sarah, but just being herself. "I like Amanda," Emma told me one day as we baked cookies. "She doesn't make me feel sleepy." Such a simple statement, but it broke my heart. The bar for trustworthy adults in Emma's life had become, "doesn't drug me." Jack, with the resilience of toddlers, adapted quickly. To him, Amanda was just another loving adult in his life, someone who read stories and played trucks. A year after the trial, David called me with news. "I'm thinking of proposing to Amanda." "That's wonderful, honey. How do you feel about it?" "Terrified," he admitted. "What if I'm wrong again? What if I'm just attracted to dangerous women?" "David, you've spent 2 years in therapy learning to recognize red flags. You've done background checks on Amanda that would make the FBI proud. At some point, you have to trust yourself again." "What about the kids?" "Talk to them. Emma's old enough to have opinions, and she deserves to be heard." The family meeting was held at my house neutral ground. David explained that he loved Amanda and wanted to marry her, but only if Emma and Jack were comfortable with it. Emma, now 10 and wise beyond her years, asked, "Will Amanda make you sick?" "No, sweetheart. Amanda would never hurt any of us." "Will she live with us?" "Yes, if we get married. She and Tyler would move in with us." Emma considered this. "Tyler's nice. He taught me to skateboard." She looked at me, then back at David. "I think it's okay, but can Grandma Chris check her? Just to be sure." And so I found myself having coffee with Amanda, not quite an interrogation, but close. She understood why, even found it amusing. "I'd be worried if you weren't suspicious," Amanda said, stirring her latte. "After what David's been through, what you've all been through, blind trust would be stupid." "Tell me about your husband," I said, testing. Amanda's face softened with genuine grief. "Tom was everything to me. High school sweethearts, you know. When he died, they told me it was enemy fire. Heroic death, they said. It took 2 years, and a congressional inquiry to learn his unit had been given wrong coordinates. Friendly fire. Our own people killed him, then lied about it. How did you handle that? Badly at first. I wanted to burn down the world, but I had Tyler to think about. So I channeled the anger into advocacy, helping other military families get truth about their loved ones' deaths. She met my eyes. I know what it's like to be lied to by people you trust. I would never ever do that to David or the kids. I believed her. More importantly, David believed her. The wedding was small, held in my backyard on a perfect September day 2 years after Sarah's arrest. Emma served as flower girl Jack as ring bearer, and Tyler as his new dad's best man. I officiated, having gotten ordained online for the occasion. In my speech, I talked about resilience, about the courage to love after betrayal, about families formed by choice, rather than just blood. I looked at David, healthy and happy, at Emma, no longer pale and drugged, at Jack, toddling confidently between the adults who loved him. Love isn't poison, I concluded. Real love nourishes, protects, and helps us grow. It took tremendous courage for everyone here to learn to trust again, to open their hearts after they'd been so badly broken. But that's what makes this union special. It's built not on naive faith, but on conscious choice, on deliberate trust, on love that's been tested and proven true. As David and Amanda kissed, Emma tugged on my dress. "Grandma Chris, I'm happy." "Me too, sweet pea, me too." The reception was joyful, filled with David's colleagues who'd stood by him, Amanda's fellow nurses, and Tyler's baseball team. No one mentioned the past, the trial, the woman in prison who'd nearly destroyed everything. This was about the future. Patricia Bowman attended, now a friend rather than just a detective. She'd been promoted after breaking the poisoning network, but still checked in regularly. "You did good, Kristine," she said, watching David dance with Amanda. "You saved them all." "We saved each other," I corrected. As the sun set, I found myself thinking about Harold. He would have been proud of how we'd handled everything, how we'd refused to let evil win. The Harold Foundation, which I'd established with the help of crime victim advocates, had helped dozens of families recognize the signs of intimate partner poisoning. Just last month, a woman in Ohio had called our hotline after her husband's mysterious illness coincided with increased life insurance. "Grandma." Jack called, running to me with cake-covered hands. "Up, up." I lifted my grandson, not caring about my dress. He smelled like vanilla frosting and baby shampoo, like innocence preserved despite everything. The geometric lunchbox that had started it all was now in the FBI's museum, a warning to future investigators. But in our lives, it had been replaced by simple brown bags, by meals made with love instead of poison, by trust, rebuilt one careful day at a time. Sarah would be eligible for parole in 18 years. Emma would be 28, then Jack 20, old enough to speak at the hearing if they chose to ensure she never came near them again. But that was future pain. Tonight was about joy. As the party wound down, David found me on the porch. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for believing your instincts, for fighting for us, for helping us heal." "Always," I said simply. "That's what mothers do." Sarah's mother would disagree. "Ruth isn't a mother. She's a predator who happened to give birth. There's a difference." David hugged me, then the kind of hug he'd given as a child when the world felt safe. And mothers could fix everything. I couldn't fix everything, couldn't erase the past or guarantee the future. But I could stand guard over my family's happiness, watching for geometric patterns and suspicious smoothies and anything else that threatened the peace we'd fought so hard to find. 5 years have passed since that terrible Tuesday when Dr. Margaret Chen recognized a geometric pattern that saved my son's life. I'm 70 now, officially a senior citizen, though I feel younger than I did during those dark months of investigation and trial. Purpose, I've learned, is the best anti-aging treatment. The Harold Foundation has grown beyond my wildest dreams. What started as a way to channel my anger into something productive has become a nationally recognized organization. We've helped identify over 200 cases of intimate partner poisoning, saved countless lives, and trained thousands of healthcare workers to recognize the signs. Just last week, I received a letter that made me cry. A woman in Texas wrote to thank us. Her husband had been experiencing mysterious symptoms for months when she happened across our website. The checklist we'd developed with Dr. Chen made her realize his illness coincided with their life insurance increase and her sister-in-law's sudden interest in cooking for him. Tests revealed arsenic poisoning. The sister-in-law is now serving 25 years, and the husband is recovering. "You gave me the courage to trust my instincts," she wrote, "just like you trusted yours." David has become my co-director at the foundation. After everything he couldn't return to financial advising, couldn't shake the knowledge that Sarah had seen him as nothing more than a portfolio to be liquidated. Instead, he found purpose in helping others avoid our fate. He and Amanda just celebrated their 3rd wedding anniversary. Their blended family has melded beautifully. Tyler, now 17, is heading to college next year on a baseball scholarship. He calls David Dad and means it. Emma, 15, has grown into a remarkable young woman. She volunteers at the foundation, creating social media content to warn young people about relationship red flags. "If you have to make someone special drinks, they can't see you prepare," she said in one video that went viral. "That's not love, that's a true crime documentary waiting to happen." Jack is 5 now, a bundle of energy who knows David as his only father. We've prepared age-appropriate answers for when he asks harder questions, but for now, he's just a happy kindergartner who loves dinosaurs and soccer. The geometric lunchbox became the symbol of our foundation. Emma designed our logo, a simple lunchbox with a heart on it, representing meals made with love, not malice. It appears on our educational materials, our website, even the pendant I wear every day. Sarah remains in prison. She's reached out several times through her lawyer requesting to see the children. David and I discussed it with Emma's therapist, who advised waiting until Emma was 18 to make that decision herself. Jack, we agreed, should never have to meet the woman who tried to murder the only father he knows. Ruth died in prison 2 years ago, taking the full truth of her crimes to the grave. Investigators suspected she'd killed more than the 7 husbands they could prove, but without her cooperation, the cold cases remain unsolved. Sarah didn't attend the funeral. Prison officials said she showed no emotion when informed of her mother's death. Marcus was released last year after serving his sentence. He immediately left the country, his dreams of David's insurance money replaced by the reality of a criminal record and permanent deportation. He's never attempted to contact Jack or claim paternity. David remains Jack's legal father in every way that matters. Dr. Linda Hartwell continues to serve her 40-year sentence. Her therapy practice records led to dozens more arrests, creating a cascade effect that dismantled similar networks across the country. The smoothie killer case, as the media dubbed it, became a watershed moment in recognizing domestic poisoning as a serious crime pattern rather than isolated incidents. I still volunteer at St. Mary's Hospital, though now I'm often asked to speak to medical students about recognizing poisoning symptoms. Dr. Margaret Chen and I developed a training program that's been adopted by hospitals nationwide. She says I should get an honorary medical degree. I tell her my 3rd grade teaching certificate is enough. One morning last month, I was preparing breakfast for Emma and Jack, who'd spent the night while David and Amanda celebrated their anniversary. Emma was helping Jack with his letters patient despite his squirming. "EMMA, Jack spelled out loud. "That's your name." "Good job, buddy. Now spell yours." As I watched them, I thought about Sarah teaching Emma letters, hiding poison in the kitchen while playing devoted mother. The contrast with this peaceful morning was stark. "Grandma Chris." Emma said suddenly, "Do you think Mom ever thinks about us?" I set down the spatula, choosing my words carefully. "I'm sure she does, honey, but thinking about someone and truly loving them are different things." "I know, Dr. Sawyer says Mom has something broken inside her that makes it hard to love properly." Emma helped Jack write his name. "I'm glad I'm not broken like that." "You're not broken at all, sweetheart. You're brave and kind and strong." Sometimes I worry, she admitted quietly, that when I grow up, I'll be like her, that it's in my DNA or something. I sat beside her, pulling both children close. You know what's in your DNA, your dad's kindness, your grandpa, Harold's sense of humor, and my stubbornness. But more importantly, you are not your DNA. You're the choices you make, the love you give, the help you offer others. And every choice you've made shows me you're nothing like her. Jack looked up at us, syrup on his chin. Who's her? Someone who made bad choices, Emma told him. But we make good choices, right, Grandma? The best, I agreed, wiping Jack's face. Later, as I drove them to school, I passed the street where David's old house stood. New families lived there now, unaware of the darkness that had once inhabited those rooms. The geometric lunchbox was in an evidence locker, the poisoned smoothies long destroyed, but the memories lingered. Yet stronger than those memories was the present Emma chatting about her science project, Jack singing off-key to the radio, the Herald Foundation's latest newsletter on my dashboard showing 3 more lives saved this month. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Amanda's pregnant. Wanted you to be the first to know. I pulled over, tears blurring my vision. A new life untouched by the past, created in love rather than calculation. I texted back, wonderful news, Harold would be so happy. And he would be. My late husband had always believed in second chances and the power of love to overcome evil. He'd have been proud of how we'd all survived, thrived, even in the aftermath of betrayal. That evening, we gathered for a family dinner to celebrate the pregnancy news. David grilled on the patio while Amanda supervised the kids' homework. Tyler was helping Emma with algebra while Jack colored at the kitchen table. Normal, beautiful chaos. Grandma Chris, Tyler said, looking up from the math book. Mom says you're basically a detective. Is that true? Not a detective, I corrected. Just a grandmother who noticed something wrong. And saved Dad's life, Emma added proudly. She's a hero. Heroes wear capes, I protested. I wear cardigans. Same thing, David called from the grill. Though I'd pay to see you in a cape, Mom. As we ate dinner together, Amanda asked if I'd be willing to be in the delivery room when the baby arrived. You're the mother of this family, she said simply. I'd like you there. I agreed, honored by her trust. This baby would enter a world where their father was healthy, their siblings were safe, and their grandmother had learned the hard way that love and vigilance must go hand in hand. After dinner, as I helped clear the table, I found myself holding Harold's picture from my wallet. We did it, I whispered. We protected them. Sometimes I dream about that Tuesday morning, about what would have happened if Dr. Chen hadn't recognized the lunchbox, if I dismissed her warning, if Sarah had succeeded. I wake from those nightmares, grateful for the instincts that saved us all. The geometric patterns that once meant death now fuel my determination. Every speech I give, every family we help, every poisoner we stop, is a victory against the darkness Sarah and her network represented. People often ask me how I found the strength to investigate my own daughter-in-law to essentially become an undercover agent in my own family. The answer is simple love. Not the twisted version Sarah claimed to feel, but real love. The kind that protects, rather than poisons, that builds, rather than destroys. Emma recently wrote an essay for school about her hero. She chose me, writing, "My grandmother taught me that sometimes the hardest thing to do is trust your instincts when everyone else thinks you're wrong. She showed me that real love means protecting the people you care about even when it's scary." Her teacher sent it to me with a note. I think you should see this. Also, thank you for everything the Herald Foundation does. My sister called your hotline last year. Her husband is alive because of it. As I write this, Jack is learning to ride a bike in my driveway, David coaching him patiently. Emma is inside practicing violin, the notes drifting through the window. Amanda is showing her pregnancy ultrasound to Tyler, who's excited about being a big brother again. This is what victory looks like. Not the dramatic arrests or the headlines, but these quiet moments of a family rebuilt. Sarah tried to poison us all literally and figuratively. She failed because love Real love is the strongest antidote to evil. Do I forgive her? That's a question I'm asked often. The answer is no. Forgiveness is for mistakes, for hurt, caused by human failing. What Sarah did was calculated evil. I don't forgive her, but I don't let her poison my present either. She's serving her time, facing her consequences. We're living our lives choosing joy. The Herald Foundation's motto, chosen by Emma, is simple: love nourishes, it never poisons. We print it on every brochure, every website page, every presentation. It's a reminder that in healthy relationships, care doesn't come with hidden costs. Next month marks the 6th anniversary of that fateful Tuesday. David wants to mark it somehow to acknowledge how far we've come. Emma suggested we have a celebration of life, invite everyone who helped us survive and thrive. Detective Patricia, Dr. Chen, the FBI agents who've become friends, the therapists who helped us heal. We could call it our rebirth day, Emma said, the day our real life began. I like that. October 15th would no longer be the day Sarah tried to kill David. It would be the day we chose survival, the day a geometric lunchbox became a lifeline instead of a death sentence. As I close this story, I want to leave you with hard-won wisdom. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let politeness or disbelief silence your inner voice. Love shouldn't make you sick. Real families don't keep secrets that kill. And sometimes the most ordinary objects, a lunchbox, a smoothie, a concerned glance from a doctor, can save everything. My name is Kristine Henderson. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a widow, a survivor, and an advocate. I'm 70 years old and just beginning the most important work of my life. Every day I wake up grateful for the instincts that made me look closer, the doctor who recognized danger, and the love that gave me courage to act. Sarah is prisoner number 48392, serving 30 years for attempted murder. I am a free woman surrounded by a family forged in fire but strengthened by truth. She thought she was playing a long game, slowly poisoning my son for profit. She didn't realize she was teaching us all how to recognize predators, how to protect each other, how to turn trauma into purpose. In the end, the geometric lunchbox that was meant to disguise murder became the key to justice. And every meal we share now, simple and honest and made with real love, is a celebration of life over death, truth over lies, and the unbreakable power of a family that refuses to be poisoned. The Herald Foundation saved 47 lives last year. Emma wants to be a doctor specializing in toxicology. Jack knows he's loved. David runs marathons. Amanda is growing their baby in joy, not calculation. And me, I'm proof that it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. Sometimes the greatest act of love is having the courage to look inside the lunchbox, even when you're terrified of what you'll find. Because the truth, however painful, is the only antidote to a poisoned life. Love nourishes. It never poisons. Remember that, and you'll always know the difference between real care and deadly deception. Thank you for listening to our story. If it saves even one life, then every moment of pain was worth it. Stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and never ever drink a smoothie you didn't see prepared. Now I have a question for all of you. Have you ever had a gut feeling that something was wrong even when everything seemed perfect on the surface? What did you do about it? Please share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else trust their instincts and save a life. If this story touched you or opened your eyes to dangers you hadn't considered, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share it with anyone who needs to hear that their instincts matter, that love shouldn't hurt, and that it's never too late to seek help. Thank you for joining me on this journey from betrayal to triumph. Remember, you are stronger than you know, and your instincts are there to protect you. Trust them. Until next time, this is Kristine Henderson reminding you that real love never comes with poison. Take care of yourselves and each other.